Clubhouse.
Shit, if we could go back.
Yeah.
We got too many demons to ever be good for each other.
Well, I can't argue that.
You can't.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of Dutton Ranch, the newest entry in the Yellowstone universe of shows. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 4 of Dutton Ranch, Start with a Bullet. Tonight's episode was written by Hilary Bettis and directed once again by Greg Yaitanes.
Just a community note, please join us on the Facebook group in the Yellowstone 1923-1883, the Madison and Dutton Ranch discussion and news group to discuss Dutton Ranch and the whole universe of Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone shows. Just a reminder, we assume you've watched this episode, so while we're not going to go step by step and recap, we will absolutely spoil this for you. So please put on pause, go watch this episode, come on back and discuss with us.
I was about to call you Beth because we're about to talk about Beth.
You're like, Beth, and I'm like, yes, Rip, what is it?
Caroline, there's a lot in this episode. I will say, just as one preliminary, I hated the pit slaughter scene, and I cried with Little Brown Cow.
I hated it.
Really felt like she was a symbol of hope.
And their old life, like everything in their old life. Like, I mean, she was the little Yellowstone connection, and it was heartbreaking. The entire thing was heartbreaking.
When Beth is pleading to Rip that maybe she can make it, maybe she's healthy. Like, I feel like she was speaking for all of us.
I do too.
I was like, yes, listen to her, Rip. Maybe the baby brown is okay. Maybe it's just a Black Angus thing. I don't.
It was so terrible. So we're not going to spend a long time on it, listeners, because we all saw it. It was all heartbreaking. It was all really rip our heart out stuff. So we're not going to dwell too hard, but we are going to start off with Beth today.
Let's listen to this clip. This picks up Beth in the bedroom with Oriana and Carter and follows her into the car with Oriana, because I think you and I were surprised by her reaction. I imagine a lot of viewers are going to be surprised by this reaction. So let's take a listen, and then we can see if we are surprised.
I don't mind what you do in your free time, but right now you should be getting your ass to school.
Don't you think that he's old enough to decide for himself?
I wasn't talking to you.
I'll drive you home.
Nope, you won't. Where do you live?
10 Pedal.
Are you at Jackson?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course you are. Meet me outside in 2 minutes.
Trying out for NASCAR? Guess that's a yes.
You still in school?
No. Ma'am.
Thought not. But today's not the day for this, but why him, why Carter?
He doesn't try to be something he's not. I've never met a guy like that. Most are cocksuckers.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know what type of guys you're used to, Oriana, but that one has a pure heart. If you fuck with it, I will make your life a living hell.
You already beat you to it.
Sure she did.
And she uses people, throws them out like trash. Kicked my daddy to the curb. Won't let me move out.
Well, you don't strike me as the type of woman who asks for permission.
There's a lot there to unpack, but let's talk about Beth and her reaction to finding Oriana in bed with Carter in Beth's house. First we have to say the balls on Oriana to be like, isn't he old enough to make the decision about whether or not he goes to school? Girl, you are sleeping with him in his kid's bedroom in this woman's house.
This is not the first time this girl has been caught like this.
No. But talk to us about Beth's reaction. What surprised you about it? What do you make of it?
We really haven't had a chance to see Beth in this mom role very long. We only had blips of it in the Yellowstone, where it was still very new to her there. Everything that I've talked to any viewer about this, it wholly expected Beth to be pulling Oriana out by her hair and screaming and screeching and causing a huge fight. I was really surprised by the fact that she handled it in a much more sedate way. Now, she said all the right words that we expected her to say, things like making your life a living hell and all that kind of stuff. This is the expected words. I just expected her to be screaming those words, not saying them as calmly as she was. Now, I do want to point out that in our last episode, I had said that I thought Beth would be driving like a bat out of hell when we were talking about our time warp travel that goes on in Texas. And I feel vindicated. As soon as I saw her driving today, I was like, this is what I was talking about. I think this is how she gets to point A to point B at all times, even when she's not upset. The entire portion of this that I actually want to focus on is the fact that Oriana was really quick to sell Beulah out and to say a bunch of stuff that, again, going to your theory that there's a bunch of people who are very unhappy with the 10 Petal Ranch and living there and being a part of the Jackson family. And we're starting to really get like an army of people who are unhappy. You know, we can look forward to there being potential more information that comes out of Oriana to the Dutton Ranch. I don't know what I think exactly about how she left it besides just a warning. I guess Beth has grown up with all brothers. She has grown up with a bunkhouse. We have to go with the idea that she is used to seeing like a woman in someone's bed somewhere at some point in time, right?
She's been the woman in someone's bed. Remember, she slept with Walker to get back at Rip.
Yeah, 100%. But that was as an adult. I'm kind of talking about like
yes.
over the years. I kind of feel like she probably has walked into a bunkhouse. There's always a smattering of women, you know, buckle bunnies that were hanging about or whatever. There was always this, even her own dad and Summer and all that whole thing that went on. So she's dealt with this more than I think I gave her credit for when we first sort of saw this setup coming. I was like, oh, this is going to be such a shock to her and she's going to just fly off the handle. But then the more that I thought about it, it was like, well, she's probably actually seen this a million times over. And like, to your point, has been the girl as well. Oriana's response of snapping back at Beth, I hope the conversation in the car sets her straight a little bit about how to speak to Beth. She did say thank you and stuff sort of at the end after she got out of the car. So maybe she's going to have a teensiest, whatever amount of respect she can possibly give another human being. Maybe she sort of sees she was given a little grace here, or mercy.
At least as it goes with Beth, I think she will be not so quick to snap back. I think Beth's reaction was like a really good controlled rage. Even with the car driving, it's actually a little bit of good acting on Ms. Lynn's part in the car because she's holding on to her seatbelt in a very like, oh shit bar kind of way. Mm-hmm. I think screaming is what she expects from people like Beulah, maybe even her father, other people who are over her. This was more of a quiet rage. Beth didn't scream, I will make your life a living hell. She just said it like the sun is out. It is a warm day. Texas is large, I will kill you. Just matter of fact. If she wasn't threatening her, she was just making her a promise. And I think Oriana heard that because it was a very like quick snap to yes, ma'am. And then she gets out of the truck and she gives, I don't want to say sincere, but she gives it was very nice to meet you, ma'am. It was what you say. It was, it was kind of like when the boy shows up and the dad is cleaning the gun on like the porch kind of thing. You immediately, you take in your surroundings and like, this is someone I'm not going to mess with.
I did think that she benefited great deal of about what this day was for Beth and for Rip. Had this been just another day where everything was going fine at the Dutton Ranch, I don't know she gets the same response out of Beth. Given how heavy everything was and everything that was going on, Beth's response reminded me a lot of Rip's face when we pull up on him with the brown cow. That like, I'm too old for this. I thought I could handle this better, but like, I'm actually struggling with this. That's the way I'm kind of feeling about Beth's parenting right now. Like, she thought she was 100% ready to handle this kiddo, and maybe she was for a while, but at this point, given all circumstances and all the PTSD she has of so many things going wrong in life, she's showing signs of wear, and we're not getting that Spitfire, firecracker Beth that we're used to.
You're dead on, because she says today is not the day for this, but just tell me this, why, Carter? And I think she's treating Oriana like an adult in that situation. She's not treating her like a teenager or like a petulant child caught with their hand in a cookie jar. She's saying, I know who you are. I was a version of you back in the day, and a better version of you. So why, Carter? He's a pure soul.
I also kind of feel like she's actually giving a nod to what we were talking about, that predatorial nature of Oriana, because I felt like when she said, why him?
Right.
Like, why did you choose him? That seems like actually something you might hear a parent say to, a pedophile or a molester. Like, why him? Why did you choose my child? What made my child attractive as someone you would pick? You were kind of hearing that. Like, there was almost like a distress underneath that of like shit, did I not make Carter somebody who would repel somebody who would be a predator? Something that you and I talk a lot about with our own kids, about, sort of like, we don't want them to be sitting ducks for somebody or to be taken advantage of. How do we sort of protect them from that? And she's sort of seeing like, oh my God, like, what about Carter made him look like such an easy target?
I think that's actually a great segue to Carter, which I think we need to talk about next. But before that, though, I think we need to close off this discussion on Beth a little bit, because now for 4 episodes, we've been talking about how Beth is just different than original Yellowstone Beth that we've seen. And yes, I think there's age. I think you said it before we start recording, you said there's a little bit of like PTSD weariness in Beth. We're just guessing at what's happening and where things are going. Is it possible that having learned from her experiences and gone through the PTSD kind of experiences, is it right, do you think, to say that it's just more of a more deliberate Beth? Beth traditionally would really act first and then maybe ask questions if she asked questions. It seems like she is thinking more, she's reflecting more before she acts, and then she acts. And there's still an edge there, but it's not the shouty, rip your hair out, drag you across a table kind of Beth. Or even the sarcastic, that sarcastic Beth is still there, but it's even less biting than normal. Like, she says, like, are you a Jackson? Of course you are. Like, you still have like that little edge to her, but it's a much more deliberate Beth. I think everywhere we're seeing this, even in playing this, because of her reaction, maybe she has an ally with Oriana now, whereas she didn't burn a bridge like she might have, or an inn. And if she's collecting people, or if it will come to pass that we're collecting people in a war against Beulah and the Jacksons, this kind of reaction is going to maybe make an ally, whereas punching her in the face and dragging her from the house would not have.
The other part that I think that we've had not that much experience with Beth is how she treats people she truly loves. The only person that we really feel like we've seen that with really is Rip. And she doesn't scream and yell. We've never seen her tear Rip's hair out or do something that's like so insane. Not the way that she treats strangers. Even the way she treats John, her dad, or her brothers and stuff, was with much more vehemence. Like, she was like ready to tear their skin off sometimes. Not that she didn't love them on some level, certainly her dad. I don't remember her doing that to Casey, and I don't remember her acting that way ever with Rip. Not at that level, not at that explosive level. So Carter is in a very small group of people who we haven't seen a ton of interactions with. They are a part of like her heart group, if for lack of a better word. She wants to get some things right with him. Same with Rip. Like, she wants to get some things right. That colors her decision making. And, deliberate is a good word, because I think she cares at a level that, with all the negotiations and all the business, and even with Jamie or screaming at her dad or any of the things, she had so much baggage with so many people. And didn't care. Like if those relationships absolutely just fell apart, she's queen no contact. Like, she could go no contact and not give a shit. So this is a very special group she has here, and I think her heart is just out on her sleeve, especially the circumstances of what we're dealing with on the ranch. Like, that just cannot be underscored enough.
You sent me away.
I was protecting you.
Protecting me from what? You want me to be a rancher?
No, today wasn't ranching, Carter.
Bullshit. I should have been here.
Well, you weren't.
Yeah, because you sent me to class with fucking 15-year-olds.
We will break ourselves in half to give you a better life, Carter. Do you understand that?
My life isn't yours. And it isn't fucking Rip's. I mean, no curfew, and I thought it was because you liked Ariana. You're just a liar.
Sorry.
I hate that I'm sorry at the end. That's Beth. That is uncharacteristically weak for her to be left speechless, and that's all she can get out.
I'm kind of surprised you're using the word weak. Why that word?
Because it was just like he was already out of the room, and she just gave it was the softest I'm sorry.
So that didn't hit your heart in compassion? I think she cares to do a good job about being a parent. This is her one and done situation. And, for everybody who didn't watch Yellowstone, Beth can't have kids. So this situation with Carter, she only got to be a mom for 5 years. There's the saying of parenting's only hard for the good parents. People who actually give a crap to do a good job, it's hard for them. And so that's what I was hearing. I mean, I was hearing her actually acknowledge his pain and realize I'm trying to do what I think a parent should do, but she didn't have a run up to this. She became a mom overnight, and a mom of basically a teenager the whole time, because he was 14 when he came on the scene. So she never really had the time when she could have sort of learned how to be a mom, if you will. So I didn't take it as weak. I took it as at the end of a rope. What? I don't know how to do this anymore.
I mean, again, she hasn't slept either. I mean, her and Beth this is at the end of another day. Remember, we talked in the last episode how she had to have been in the car for 10 to 12 hours in addition to everything else, and she still hasn't slept either. So very much at the end of a rope. So maybe weak is the wrong word, but it is uncharacteristic for Beth to not have some kind of larger response.
I think she was floored, to be honest, because here's the other part of Beth that we don't talk about a whole lot. Beth's not usually wrong. Beth doesn't usually misstep. And in this case, she's having somebody who, again, is in this very specific group of people that her heart is on the line with these people. He's basically saying, you took the wrong tact with me. You could have handled this in a different way, and this is completely hurting my heart, and you've, disappointed me as this whatever, as much as this kid can say that to her. The other thing that struck me in that moment, I think probably struck her too, is him even saying rip.
Fucking rip.
I don't know that he says their names very often, and certainly never calls them mom and dad or anything like that. But there was something about it that was so cold. He's just a guy on the street, rip, this person who I don't even give a shit about. And it's God, Carter, this was not our relationship. This has gone very badly here.
What are we doing with Carter? What is Beth doing with Carter? Because I think this episode exhibits perfectly some real mixed signals of, is he a man or is he a child? Because Beth treats him and Oriana very much like adults when she finds them in bed together, clearly in a sex situation. But then she does treat him like a child by keeping him away from the ranch, saying that I don't want him here. She says it no less than, I think, 3 times in this episode. I don't want him here. I'm going to go make sure he's away from here. She gives the permission for him to take Oriana. You fuck her, now feed her, and no curfew kind of thing. Not because of Oriana and him or she wants him to be happy, but because she wants to keep him from the ranch more.
Can it be both? That's kind of my issue with him calling her a liar and saying, I thought you liked her and all this stuff. There's nothing to say that Beth can't like her and also not want you to be a part of a slaughter of all of these animals. Those two things are not incongruent.
My problem with Carter's speech is that I actually was 1,000% on his side for the first half of it. I think it is bullshit that she kept him away. I'm going to be a rancher. Isn't this my future? You're sending me away. And when she said what we did today isn't ranching, he's right to say it's bullshit, because of course it's ranching, because you just did that today. Maybe it is not something you're going to do every day. It's a catastrophic thing, but it's something you have to learn how to face. If this is his future, if he is going to be expected to continue the Dutton legacy, I think John certainly would have said the boy should be here ranching. That's more important than being in high school with 15-year-olds. Now, I get her point of, and this is, I think, a lot of parents, you and me talk about this all the time, about breaking our backs to make sure our kids have it better than we did. And I appreciate her saying that. But this is what's happening on this ranch today is a part of his future. And it is a part of what's going to happen, because after Rip and Beth are gone, who will be left to run it? If they're trying to build something here, Carter has to be a part of that. So he really had me on his side for that first part. Where he lost me was when he then looped in the Oriana and the "I thought you liked her." It sounded like a little kid's argument kind of thing. And also, but you sent me away to high school with 15-year-olds. Dude, you weren't even there. Don't add a lie into what was actually a righteous argument to begin with. Because you spent the day, playing with Dwight, which is a whole thing we have to talk about next. But it's just very inconsistent. Now, teenage boys are inconsistent. And you and I both are going through and have gone through raising young men, and they can be, are you a man or a child on any given day, and how we treat them. And in certain circumstances, it is. We need some more consistency with what we're approaching with Carter, why is he in high school? This is a question you and I have been asking. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but what's your feeling about how Beth and the show is dealing with Carter?
I'm very unsure why it made sense to put him in high school. He is 19. There is no job that he would probably pursue that would require a college degree or even a high school diploma. I'm not sure why this was the choice. I know that Beth had that one-liner that you just alluded to about we want better for you than what went on with us. In the Montana situation, I don't believe there was a school anywhere nearby that he could have gone to. And as silly as this part's going to sound to those who didn't watch Yellowstone, they didn't really have reception and internet and stuff. Not very good, at least. That was kind of a whole thing of that, John would kind of enjoy going not too far from the house and the cell phone wouldn't work at all. The idea of him doing online school or anything like that, things that you might be thinking as a viewer, well, why didn't he do that? I'm not sure why they decided just as a writing team to put him at this level, except for to try to create some amount of tension, well, let's have him be signed up for school, but he doesn't go to school, and won't that cause a problem? A flashback that would have explained something about why did they make this choice, as Rip and Beth, what made them think this was the right thing? The only thing that I can possibly think of, and I do not remember Beth's story when it comes to her education, but we know that Jamie was the one who was going to go and actually we were going to put all our money and all of our educational hope into Jamie, and he was going to go all the way through law school, and that's what the ranch needed. As a businesswoman, I'm not sure that she has an MBA or ever went to college or even finished high school. I don't actually know. I don't know if we were told that, and if you guys who are, eagle-eyed Yellowstone watchers, maybe you remember there was a comment about school and how far they all got in school. But I can see why certainly Rip has nothing in terms of schooling.
No, I think Jamie having gone to was Harvard, right? I mean, I think that was the extent of known education for them, as far as I can remember.
So given that, I understand that maybe she wants to leave the door open, that hey, if you at least finished high school, if you ever want to go to college, you have that opportunity to do that. It just feels too little too late. Either they should have made him 16 or he should be done with school. But 19 is too old to be going.
You don't have to put him in high school. Have him struggle going through community college and being torn between I want to be a rancher versus I want to get a college. Putting him backwards with at most 17, 18-year-olds typically. I agree with you. It seems like a weird choice. It seems like you specifically want to do a high school angle drama.
Or were the writing teams, like I said, were they trying to create tension for Carter? What could Carter's problem be? What if he's supposed to go to high school, but he doesn't ever go, and he's skipping all the time, and that's his starting point, is that he's a fish out of water in high school, and that's where we're going to put him. You could kind of understand that from the writing team's point of view. I disagree with it. I think he was far too seasoned a rancher by that point, and just too old, just basically too old to be doing this. We are where we are, right? So this is where they put him, and this is what they're doing with him. This whole conversation with Beth, I thought he took it way too far. But again, we both have teenagers at various points in time. My kids are in their 20s now. And this push and pull of I'm a boy, I'm a man, I'm a boy, I'm a man, that isn't unrealistic. I mean, we've both had situations where our kids are 100% trying to exert their independence and they can do everything and they don't need their parents. And then the very next day, we have them wanting to crawl under our armpit and, snuggle and whatever. And you're like, God, are you a boy or are you a man? Like, what's your deal? But I think that this is the time frame, like 18, 19, like this is the time when it's like, I can't quite know who we're getting today. It wasn't off base. It wasn't unrealistic. It just doesn't make good TV. I mean, let's go with that. Is it entertaining for us to be watching this? Is this what we want on the Dutton Ranch? Not really. I don't really want to be dealing with this kid, sort of whining. And the whole, I thought you liked her. The only interaction that you saw between Beth and Oriana was Oriana being snotty to her. What part of you thought she liked her? And I understand it's the part where she said, go take her out tonight. And I get it. I understand that part. But there's no way he thought that's because Beth liked her. Like, that's just a weird take.
You already said this, but you're a liar. Really, it almost feels like he slapped her in that moment. And you and I, when we were talking about this after we had both watched, imagine if Rip had been standing in the doorway off screen or something and had heard that. I don't know that Carter would be alive right now. I I think he would have beat the shit out of him for saying something like that to Beth, who...
I don't know that he would have beat the shit out of him. I think he might have kicked him out of the house at that moment. Why don't you take off? Not so permanently, but like, you get out of our faces. Like, you are being ungrateful. You are being... absolutely out of line. You don't talk to her that way. Yeah, 100%. You don't talk to her that way. And he wasn't raised like that by them. Rip doesn't talk to her like that.
No one talks to Beth that way. No one. And Carter knows that
yes,
no one
there
talks
were.
to her.
There were people who are not in the loving family. Summer talked that way to her. John talked that way. Jamie talked that way.
Yeah.
Carter would have seen all that. Carter lived on the Yellowstone.
That's true.
He would have seen those people say rude things to her. But not the people who were in her little immediate family, So I don't know. I'm with you. I wish Rip was standing in the doorway. I wish he reacted.
So instead of going to school, he goes to pick up day work. Instead of going to get Oriana immediately when given permission, express permission from his mother, he continues to hang out with old Dwight White. So let's play this clip from Dwight and then talk about what is Dwight? What is the point of Dwight?
Yeah, Alpine born and bred. She'll be there too, except my mama on her deathbed said, Dwight, you were meant to see this big old world.
Have you?
From Alpine to here. You see, my mama, she wanted me to be somebody I wasn't. So I told her a little white lie. She's probably still up there looking down on me trying to block the pearly gates. Not that I have a ticket, but still.
Alpine, for those geography nuts, is very as southwest Texas as you can get. It is southwest of Odessa. He did travel quite a bit, but not seemingly as further as his mother would have liked. Caroline, what is the purpose of Dwight? What is the purpose of showing us Carter's great day with Dwight?
We were supposed to hear a story of a guy whose mom had all these goals for him, this path laid out for him. He bucked the system and went his own way, and look what he has now. He's got this little plot of land, and he's got, his own, he calls his own shots, and, and also, look, he's got a leopard and everything. And, all the things that a teenage boy would look at and be like, this is success. Like, this is everything. The story is it probably took this guy till he was 65 to have this, because he didn't do things the way his mom asked him to do or whatever. And he had to kind of do like the school hard knocks kind of thing. And this is what he's accumulated after these many years. But I think that for Carter, he listened to all of this. And this is what gave him the moxie and the snottiness and everything to say the things he said to Beth, because he was like, yeah, and Dwight can live this life. So why can't I? It also, though, I gotta pause for just a second and back it up to the feed store. Everything that was happening there, where he was asking for day work. First of all, I was shocked when he spun the car around and didn't go to school. I was like, are you for real? Day 100 of this. His whole conversation in there where this guy is like, yeah, you can basically come with me. And he's like, okay, but I don't have a horse. And he's like, oh, you're going to be the horse. I am sorry, but anyone who does not take like 2 steps back when someone says something like that to them, I'm scared for. Like, Carter, this man is saying things that a weird person who very much could do some scary shit to you would say. I don't understand why no part of Carter had that, like, this isn't good. He was some sort of street kid or something before he knew Beth and Rip. Like, when he said to them, you know, I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I didn't know where I was going to sleep. He had to have some amount of street smarts not to get, you know, taken in by some person who was going to harm him. So the lack of that, like the complete just like innocent face, like, okay, I'm going to be the horse. Like, what? That seemed very, very unlike what his history would tell us he should know. And then once he actually gets there, I don't know, I was pretty disappointed in him, like drinking like so much and becoming to this place where he's trying to act like Oriana is so important to him. And then he completely handles it like this, where he like isn't even showing up for their date the way that he should, and isn't treating him even the way that Beth said, like basically take her out to dinner and other stuff. She wasn't saying take her to the rodeo. She was saying like treat her like a lady, like treat her, like bring her to a restaurant, make it like a real date. All of this was concerning about Carter. It just showed so many flaws in his thinking. Probably, again, not unrealistic for a teenager, but again, I just don't want to be a part of this world. Like, I don't think this is what Dutton Ranch watchers want to deal with. And I don't think that there's anybody who didn't sit there watching Dwight thinking, is this man about to like take him into the stable and do something insane?
Or throw him in a cage right next to the leopard.
I thought when they brought him down there that there was real potential for that.
Right. If you didn't get pedophile vibes from him, then you have to at least get trafficker, or like, especially when he shows you the leopard, like, and now there's a cage right next to leopard boy and you go get in. Carter in the last 2 episodes has been told to not pull over for the sheriff. He has participated in the destruction of a guy. Now, granted, a piece of shit, but destruction of a guy's truck. He has gone, after being told you're gonna be the horse, has gone in and gone with this guy. Like, Carter is exhibiting every turn poor survival skills and really listening to like the worst kinds of influences and like you're saying, not questioning at all. When you were describing what the point of that clip was, I'm sitting here nodding because it was literally what we were just talking about. It started with a white lie to his mother who had plans for him, and he was like, I've got other plans. I'm going to do it my way because I know better. That's literally what this episode ends up being about him and Beth. Scrooge in Christmas Carol sees the ghost of all the ghosts, but then the ghost of Christmas future, and wakes up and changes his life. He sees what his future is going to be and is like, no. I finally get it. I will live a different life. Carter is staring. Dwight is the ghost of Christmas future, and he's just like, hell yeah, give me another beer, or whatever their chant is, like, need another one, or whatever it is. And yeah, I agree with you. Rip, if nothing else, is a gentleman. Now, he does go to the rodeo, and we see, because that's why Oriana gets busted trying to steal the truck. She's clearly supposed to be meeting him at the rodeo, but you were given express permission from Beth to go take her out and spend the entire night doing whatever. Unless you two have already have a standing rule that you're not allowed to pick me up at 10 Pedal Ranch, then that's another red flag. But if you haven't been given that message, why aren't you going to 10 Pedal, knocking on the door and say, I'm here to pick Oriana up. Is she ready?
Yeah, like actually act like a gentleman. Show up at the front door with flowers and that's what Beth was telling him to do.
He showed up with flowers at the rodeo. Like, he understands some gentleman things to do. We do have to play this because this joke is funny.
It's nice land you got here. I mean, I was ready to hate Texas, especially driving through the
Panhandle?
Panhandle, that's it, yeah. I've never seen so much nothing my whole life.
Must have slept through Oklahoma, man.
Maybe.
You know why Texas doesn't fall off when we go?
Why's that?
Well, because Oklahoma sucks. Oh my God, Oklahoma sucks.
I've watched that like 5 times. It's made me laugh every time. So
Yeah, it's hilarious, but I don't hate Oklahoma, so I don't really care about Oklahoma. As a Texan, I don't think that much about Oklahoma, but hilarious, and there's certainly plenty of people who hate Oklahoma. So Dwight represents a whole life, especially the exotic animals and stuff. Like, they hit all the teenage boy.
all the fantasies, yeah.
You know, you get to ride around in like a golf cart kind of thing, like, and go see these exotic animals and drink and talk and joke. And I mean, this seems like the dream, like you did it. I would like to say that I am very, very, very glad that the writers did not decide to go down a creepy path with Dwight. For all of his sort of moments of being an offbeat character, he did not turn out to be a pedophile. And if you guys have watched 1923, Yellowstone universe does not shy away from doing really, really scary sexual deviant stuff. It was actual torture. And so knowing that and knowing that they're capable of that, and then seeing the situation that Carter was in, if you haven't watched these other shows, you might think, why in the world would they go to that? Well, there's a history here. There's a history in the writing room for them being willing to show some really scary stuff.
I think we're going to see more of Dwight from Carter's point of view at this exact moment in time. Dwight represents everything he thinks he wants and everything he thinks Rip and Beth are trying to control and snuff out, which let's see how that works out for you. But let's move on from there. Let's go to Rip and the forgery and the slaughter of the animals. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the slaughter. It was very difficult to watch, but I think there was an exciting aspect of this as far as plotline goes. Beth, she puts her detective hat on, and she learns that Dr. Poole, who is the doctor of record on the pre-sale medical forms, which that kind of answered our question. There was a medical history done. There was an exam pre-sale done, at least on Bullet the Bull.
It answered everything, actually, that we talked about. We were like, was there paperwork? Was there a vet involved? Did they get anything? Yeah, there was blood tests. There was a vet sign-off, and they had paperwork of where he was from. We had all the things that we were wondering about.
I thought Dr. Poole, the way he answers something, I was like, who is this? He's like very gruff. For a second, I was like, oh, this guy is going to be part of the conspiracy. But they went the complete opposite way and surprised me. He never heard of J.R. Simons, the cattle broker. He has no idea who Beth Dutton is. He did none of that work. All of that stuff is a forgery. Of course, in classic Rip and Beth style, their response is to go beat the shit out of J.R. Simons and then set his trailer ablaze, and it is a fantastic explosion. Did you have a problem with how this all played out?
Well, okay. So first and foremost, not in the thinking part, but just in the entertainment part, it was exciting as hell. I mean, I loved that they were working together. That is what I need. I need Beth and Rip right next to each other, walking lockstep, doing everything together. Loved him pouring on the gasoline and her flicking her cigarette. Like, sexy as hell. Like, I loved all of it. Now, when it comes back to the thinking portion of this and like, what did we just burn up and what did we just do? You basically just burned up all the evidence that would have backed you in a court of law as to like what went on here. And you could have taken him down and probably this entire operation down, including stuff at the auction, had you collected a bunch of paperwork first. So that on that side, I was like, guys, take a minute and collect up all, like, just armfuls of paperwork. Throw the file cabinet in the back of the truck, do all the things, then burn his shit up.
He's pleading for his life. He's saying, I can get every cent of your money back, but you let him go. He says, people come to me. I didn't invent Bullet the Bull. Someone came to me to sell him on. Why didn't you beat the name out of him? He was going to give it up. He was doing anything to try and keep his life. You just said, get out of here, never come back to Ria Paloma again. Lack of thinking, and in addition to why not take all of the papers? You're not going to get him for information, but he's saying, I can get all your money back. Don't you want your money? That would be a concern at this particular moment where you just had to go kill off a large fraction of your entire herd.
It definitely seems short-sighted. And again, though, but what we expect from Rip and Beth, this is all the things we were just complaining about. Like, all the things that we were like, where's that spark? Where's that crazy side of Rip and Beth where they just, like, act first and ask questions later? This is the scene that they've put in all the trailers. The two of them walking away from that explosion,
There's a line here, put a pin in it because I don't know if it's going to become important. Before all of this, before Beth has even, like, I think confirmed the forgery earlier in the episode, Rip says something to her. This is a paraphrase, so I think it's a pretty close to an exact quote. It ain't Reveille Farms either. It's more than likely Mexico. I'm not sure what the reference means to Reveille Farms. I haven't heard that name before. I don't know if that's where they think the paperwork said this bull came from.
That is it.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure if we're going to hear from Reveille Farms again, because maybe that's why they didn't need J.R. Simons, maybe because they have this name of Reveille Farms they plan on tracking down. Maybe they already know who the on-seller is, or they think so. Probably also a forgery or a front.
Yeah, it's
right.
Just a fake name, probably.
Bold strategy forgery to use a real Dr. Poole at a real Winter Garden vet clinic to forge your papers. You think you would have pulled like a Dr. Nick or something, because how many people wouldn't call Dr. Poole to be like, can you just verify this or this? Maybe it doesn't come up. Maybe, only 1 out of every 100 actually do that follow-up or whatever. But one thing we didn't discuss last week about foot and mouth disease, there's an incubation period of 2 to 14 days. Maybe J.R. Simons thought I would get away with it because there is an incubation period. If full 14 days had gone by before bullets started infecting the herd, maybe you're less likely to draw the dots to a brand new bull versus like day 3 or 4. This slaughter scene, there was so much buildup. I feel like it was a full third of the episode with them digging the pit, spray painting the field, loading all of those guns. To say nothing, it's like a 3-minute scene where he is shooting the bullets into the pit. I do want to play this clip. This is Azul and Zachariah talking as they're getting ready for this. They're spray painting the field and they're on their way to paint the field. This was a stagger conversation that the two of them were having. I want to take a listen.
You can tell me to shut up if you want, but God's plan ain't always a blessing.
Shut up.
Golly.
What?
Just need some air.
My old man always said the surer a man is, the less he knows.
Hector wasn't wrong.
So how can anyone be sure what the Lord's thinking, blessing or not?
I ain't sure. But if it's all for nothing, might be too bitter a pill to swallow. You know? Might be too bitter.
I don't know how this fits into the larger narrative, but it felt important. It felt like they were taking time to show it to us. And maybe that's the point, that maybe God's plan isn't always a blessing. Maybe it doesn't work out for good and that's God's plan, but maybe this has actually nothing to do with God. And maybe that this was just this was not act of God business like Everett said last episode, but act of man business.
I think that that's a possibility. I also think that if you took it as a much larger message, like, Rip and Beth's path has been so difficult. I mean, starting back with the fire and everything that went on in Montana, everything that we've just seen within Dutton Ranch storylines, right? They kept sort of like trying to ask each other and trying to reassure each other, like, we can do this, right? And like, this is something that can come to fruition. And I think that the idea of like God's plan, it's very difficult to think that there would be these times that feel so tragic and it still be, quote, God's plan, because somehow there's this idea that God's plan equals everything going right. But that's not really what that all means. And overall, I mean, anytime that you're forced off your path and these things happen, whether it be the giant fire, whether it be having to slaughter these cows, in that moment, you're supposed to decide, like, is this some sort of lesson that I'm supposed to be learning? Is this, am I supposed to be developing my resilience? Am I supposed to be developing some other part of my character that is a part of God's plan that you can only learn through tragedy? You can only learn through these terrible moments in your life. But it does make you question, like, the bigger picture. Like, what is it that God is wanting for me? What is it that is supposed to be happening here that I have to suffer these horrible moments in life. And I think I can look at it like an overarching thing of all of Dutton Ranch and feeling like, could you look at the fire as the way that they end up at the Edwards Ranch? And then was the Edwards Ranch like a blessing to them? Maybe you could look at it like that. But then, and they felt like it was a blessing that they got the bull. Like they were like, haha, we did it. Like, this is wonderful. And then the bull like takes down their herd or whatever. Like, you never know like what's the blessing and what's the lesson.
At the end of the episode, before Beth goes to have her confrontation or unexpected confrontation with Carter, her and Rip are in the truck, and he tells Beth it isn't on her to fix. Now, that raised a question for you and me, and I want to talk a little bit about it. Did he mean by that it is on him to fix, or is it not fixable?
I think, knowing Rip, he wants to take full responsibility. I think that there's a fair shot that a lot of this stuff is unfixable. You can't go backwards. Like, we're not going to be able to get that same genetically powerful animals again. Like, we're probably not. I'm still kind of relying on this idea that I don't watch Marshalls, but I have heard tale that Casey's looking to sell cattle over there. I don't know. I don't watch it. If you guys are listening and you know that there's been any talk that Casey still has any cattle, I think there's some shot that Beth, in a sad moment, calls her brother and tells her what's going on. And maybe, just maybe, Yellowstone cattle come this way. And we were sort of trying to figure out how it could happen.
And we still have the Beth and Rip cattle that we talked about last week's episode that we don't know what happened to them after the fire. So
maybe somebody's holding them up there, or it's possible that they sold them and that's how they have the money to have bought, the ranch and everything.
Sure.
It's possible. We don't really know. Again, maybe there needs to be another flashback some other way. I think it'd be fun to have Casey tie back in.
Oh, for sure. I think Casey is a strong character if he's interacting with others in the family, because he has always had a very complicated relationship with Rip. While his sister has always loved him, she's never really understood him. They were just very different people. But like his relationship with his father, he always had a very hard and difficult relationship with Rip, because Rip always kind of thought him a traitor to the family. So it would be very interesting to explore the relationship of Casey and Rip coming down here for him to join. So I guess we have to see what happens with Marshalls, but I still need to catch up on the finale, which just occurred. So let's just finish off Rip here. He calls Everett to say it's done, which I think he had to do because Everett was keeping the secret. But I think Everett definitely needed an affirmative, I have snuffed this problem out. I don't know what the mandatory reporter rules are for this kind of thing, but I think that phone call to Everett was pretty much to satisfy it's done. But I think he also professionally needed to hear that from Rip. What's your feeling about Rip at the end of this episode? He goes and lays in the yard looking up at the stars. He seemed as close to breaking, maybe as close to crying as I think we've ever seen him in the show.
Yeah, I mean, that was my assessment. I was like, wow, this is the worst we've ever seen him. I appreciate that Beth gave him his space, but also some part of me kind of wanted her to go lay down on the grass out there, because I just want them to go through this together. I really don't want them to keep separating and suffering on their own. Like this, they have been such a hard-fought couple that I need them to come back together at these moments and be each other's comfort. They're so used to suffering alone. I hope that there is a moment where they're like hugging and having like their own healing together. I don't know if that's possible for Rip. I don't know.
The montage of her drinking post argument with Carter or confrontation with Carter, she's drinking in the house and he's out in the field, and that last montage was rough. I agree with you, because I feel like be together now in the sadness afterwards and in the morning, because this is mourning. The last thing Rip says to Little Brown is, you didn't deserve this. Like, they are in mourning, and this is devastating. This is devastating from a human love of animals standpoint. It's also devastating for their business and for this new future that they were supposed to be building and all of this hope. I feel like a lot of the symbols of hope died in this episode, and it was a rough episode to watch. But we're not quite done. We're almost done. We need to go over to Ten Petal and deal with Beulah Jackson, who had a lot of interactions with different characters in this episode. Let's start with her and Beth. After Beth drops off Oriana, she says, I found her in bed with my son. Beulah says to Beth, in my experience, boys that age enjoy being played with. Heh, heh, heh. That is gross shit, Beulah.
We talked a little bit about Beulah's odd sense of when to use her sexuality and when to think that kind of stuff is funny. And, you know, her touching the sheriff last week and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like she's acting a little bit too much. And I would call this out if it was a man as well. Because people would say, well, you know, some old man would say some about Oriana. And you know what? I'd be right there to say, gross, stop.
I don't like it either, but there is a larger question here because she offers Beth a drink, which Beth declines. This one, I want to lead my discussion or my thoughts on Beulah after this episode because it came to me in a lightning bolt. Beulah leads everything with lies or manipulation or leverage. Everything she says starts from that point. She doesn't ask for things. She doesn't participate in polite conversation or really observe sincere niceties. Everything seems it comes from a place of, I'm going to get you, or you're not going to get me. And her saying, Beth may have 1,000 reasons for not wanting to stay for a drink, considering she just found your granddaughter in bed with her, son.
She has to go slaughter her freaking
Right, I'm saying things that
herd.
Beulah would know about without knowing anything else going on in her life. But for her to say, like, Rio Paloma's a small town, but there's an implicit threat in there. But it does ask a question of, is this a smart move by Beth?
I don't think that Beth is the type to regret things like that, but I do think that she needs to, do what we said from the very beginning, which is, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Like, she had plenty of drinks with guys that she absolutely despised on the Yellowstone, and she had reason for that because, she needed to know what they were thinking, know what was going on in their, in their worlds, and that was a way to do it. They often did it over a drink in a bar. I don't know what she could have responded in that moment, given all the circumstances, given the fact that she just left the house with this whole situation with Carter and what she has to go back to, and that she really does have stuff to go do. She doesn't, this isn't the time for her to stop and have a drink. Even in her own Beth way, I'm not a clever enough writer to come up with what the snarky line is to basically say, like, another day, some other time, basically, but not that nice. Like, I want it to come out in like a Beth way, but basically, like, we're not doing this today, but you're right, we're going to cross paths again, or something,
A drink is coming.
Sentiment of that. Yeah. I mean, I'm giving her all the grace because of all the crazy stuff that's going on right now.
Today is not the day for her to be having conversations with Oriana about this or with Beulah about anything. So,
and maybe that was even the line to Beulah, like, today's just not the day, and then just leave. And maybe that just is like, I'm not really like saying no to you. It's just like, I'm going through some shit and I can't deal. But here's the thing. She can't show any weakness or anything could be going on because she doesn't want Beulah to dig, right? She doesn't want Beulah to find out, well, what's going on with the Dutton Ranch or what's happening over there. Like, go send some goon over there to go figure it out. Because obviously this is all meant to be extremely
very
private.
Hush. Very much. Let's Beulah and Oriana, in light of being brought home by Beth, and she calls her a feral animal. She takes away her credit card. She takes away access to her Bronco. Is this good parenting, or is this too little, too late for where Oriana's already at?
Oh, I mean, I think we all think too little, too late, and that this girl's in her 20s from all we can figure out. But I was glad she did something. It could have absolutely been nothing. So to take away her credit cards and take away the car, that was actually far more than I thought Beulah was gonna do. Yay for some consequences.
And we see Austin returning, which I thought for a second it was actually going to be Rob Will coming home from rehab. So I was a little surprised that Austin was the one getting out of the taxi, not Rob Will, because Oriana being there in that scene, I thought it was going to be kind of a thing where we saw her. But then I started thinking Oriana looking at Austin maybe feels like she is going to go strike out and go try and sleep with Austin. That was actually my next thought, which then will have its own ramifications and repercussions. But could you imagine at Yellowstone any of the bunkhouse boys being dropped off at the ranch by taxi? No, they would have gone in one of the Yellowstone trucks and picked him up from the hospital. I think it says a lot about Austin's standing in Ten Petal Ranch and just the state of the Ten Petal Ranch bunkhouse and the unity, the fact that he had to take a taxi there.
We don't know what's going to happen next, right? Because it was like a complete, just like we just saw him. And then
Just saw him, and there's like a look, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know, is he just coming to pick up all of his stuff and get out of there? Like, we don't really know exactly what he's doing. So I wasn't thinking he would call 10 Pedal because, I mean, he's being dropped off in the middle of, in the dark. You know, like he didn't have him go pull up right at the bunkhouse. Like he's being dropped off pretty far off the road there. So I kind of thought, oh, maybe he's just like coming in, getting his stuff and like getting the heck out of there. So that's why you wouldn't call 10 Pedal. Like you wouldn't want them to know that he was discharged.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I think Austin has definitely been one of...
How do you get gone, right?
Right. I mean, the West disappeared in the middle of the night. Maybe he's trying to take a scene play out of his book, as did Whitney. I mean, Whitney also disappeared with little Colt in the middle of the night. So,
right. That's kind of what I thought was happening. Like he just kind of showed up and kind of like ran into the brush.
Which maybe explains the look. Like, shit, someone saw me. I was hoping no one would see me, and now Miguel, the pit bull, and Oriana have seen me.
Yeah, that was probably a big problem for Austin's plan.
Let's talk about Beulah with Joaquin. She comes out. This is after, it seems like she's been drinking kind of all day. Joaquin is sitting on the patio. She's drunk. She says, I'm so tired, but then says, I'm fed up in Spanish. And then Joaquin tells her to let him take over. He can do the job for her. And her only response, kind of slurred, is, I wish I could. Why can't she let Joaquin take over? What does she mean by tired? Is this a medical tired? Is this just fed up with all of the things on her plate?
Well, I said in our last episode that I thought that the reason why we were joining the story where we were is that the 10 Pedal Ranch was taking a turn for the worse, and that this was the time that something was going to happen here. Things were going to get out of hand in a new and different way, like the big moment for this ranch. I feel like the fact that she has said she's tired more than once, this is not the first time. I know when we're going to talk about the conversation with Everett, she says it again, that she's just so tired. I didn't take it to be exactly medical, though that could absolutely play in here. I was 100% just taking it like, you know, getting those phone calls from Mariano, dealing with dead bodies, visiting a ranch hand, going to some girl's trailer. This woman is like, oh, like, I am done with this garbage. I mean, John would have said the same shit. He would have thrown his glass into the fire and said, I'm tired of all this. I'm sick and tired of everything. So I kind of just think it's like the age and stage of this level boss, you know, where they just are like, God, this is all such bullshit. I guess that's why it was important that we heard the 2-sentence part about how he's not really a Jackson, and that, you know, he was raised by the Jacksons, but he's a Reyes. And because I was saying I was fine with that conversation happening at a later date. But the I wish we could, I think, is that this has to stay in our family. It has to stay in the Jackson family.
Right. As much as I treat you like a son, you're not actually a son.
Yeah. And so I think that's the whole comment, is like bloodlines matter. And unfortunately, even though you have proven to be a much more dedicated and loyal son than Rob will, or seemingly really anyone in the bunkhouse or anywhere else, she doesn't have a lot of loyalty. That's kind of the thing. Like, I was thinking about that. Like, I said this in the last episode as well. Like, their money doesn't seem to be working. The amount of people that they've waved money in their faces, and there was 3 in the previous episode. We had the sheriff, we had Whitney, Austin, that we pointed out all those examples where money didn't mean anything. It didn't change their mind. And I kind of feel the same way about Oriana. Like you just said, you know, everyone thinks she's so charming. I actually disagree with you. We haven't found very many people who think she's charming at all. Not Hoyt anymore, not the sheriff. Carter does, sure. Not Beth, not Beulah, not anyone who's an adult doesn't find her charming. So it's like we're watching these women's power like dry up. Like, maybe you did have a superpower, whether it be money or charm or whatever, but it seems like it's not working out for you anymore. Everybody's got your number and it's no good.
Which takes us to the last conversation, I think, perfectly, that we're going to discuss. This is when Everett is lured to 10 Pedal by a fake pregnant horse giving birth. This is how Beulah acts. She just doesn't call him up and say, I would like to talk to you. Please come over here. Which, he's an honorable man. Maybe he wouldn't have wanted to, but he probably would have. But she doesn't even give him the chance, though.
Do you know why, though? Because that's way too vulnerable for a woman like Beulah. Because if he said no, that's like rejection. And she's not going to accept that,
Right.
right?
We said that when he walks away from her in the last episode. I don't think a lot of people walk away from Beulah. I agree with you. And it leads to the conversation when he walks in and says, just take advantage of a good offer. And he says to her, nothing from you is a good offer. That's a real spicy way to start off what ends up being a pretty deep, emotional, nostalgia-filled conversation between these two. I just wanted to set the scene because the clip was like 3 minutes long. I couldn't play all of it. So I'm going to play the back half of the clip. But just to set the scene for your memories, guys, Everett seems to have a personal stake in with how Ted Peddle is being run poorly. He takes a shot at Chet as not being up to the job because he had just had the conversation with him about the foal being delivered and all of that. He has instantly decided that Chet is not the man. He has remarked that Rob Will is off battling his demons again. And Beulah's response is, Everett, you always knew how to cut me so deep. Like really setting the scene for these two have a real history that we are just about to learn a little bit about. With that setting, let's listen to this last clip.
He was a decent kid. Good people don't lose all their good.
Some do.
I still got that old tire swing hanging from my oak. I would have thought it would have fallen down by now. Decades of sun and rain, and occasional ice storm, but it won't quit. And more than anything, I just want the ropes to rot so I don't have to hear it creak every time the breeze blows by. And part of me still thinks it's Levi out there. And then, reality kicks in and that wound rips open again. But the guilt of cutting it down, shit, if we could go back. We got too many demons to ever be good for each other.
Well, I can't argue that.
You can't.
Complicated conversation. What's your general take on it? What did you learn from the conversation?
Well, I mean, obviously they have this complicated past. It was giving me this moment about, I wonder what Everett's demons are. Because, so far he's kind of come off almost like he could have been the town's pastor, like he was coming off like he's just this sort of nurturing healer character in town, but he's got demons. So now, okay, you're giving me some layers to Everett that I didn't know he had. We're finding out about Levi, which was terribly sad. And having lost my mom 2 years ago, there's a part of me that really understood I can't cut down the swing in the yard, even though I hear it out there. I am curious to know if Beulah has anything to do with Levi, if Rob Will has anything to do with Levi, if they were friends. All the things that we're trying to figure out with them definitely got meatier in this conversation. But I understand Beulah's demons. I understand that enough bad stuff has happened between the two of them that she wasn't even really offended by him saying nothing from you is a good offer. I mean, that means she owns some bad shit that she's done to him, because most people would bristle and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not nice. And so, she has to know she's done some bad stuff to him. But the rest of it, I'm very curious if we find out what the demons that Everett has and what their whole backstory is in terms of it's clear to me they were a couple. It's clear to me. I don't know if they were married or if it was something a little different than that. Not sure.
An affair. That's what I had in my notes. Was this a marriage or was this an affair? Because it was one or the other, right?
Yes, because they clearly were a couple at some point, or clearly.
And I feel like Everett made mention of his wife being a widow when one of the first times we met him with either Beth or Rip. They were clearly together. Were they married though? Was Levi their share child? My feeling on this was the way the conversation went from Rob Will was a good kid. You can't get all that good out. And interesting, Beulah says, yeah, you can, meaning like Rob Will has no good in him. That was kind of where Beulah was in this conversation, which is interesting, which maybe is why she's looking past him for running the ranch. Maybe it can't be Joaquin, but it maybe explains why she has to look to Oriana as the only other Jackson around, because she doesn't think Rob Will has any good in him. And I think if nothing else, Beulah, yes, clearly is owning some of her shit and her demons and not maybe being a good person. But I think Beulah also definitely thinks she's a better person than most, or at least has the tenacity to run this ranch, and maybe Rob Will doesn't. What is the connection then between Everett, Beulah, Rob Will, and Levi? Were they just childhood friends? That was kind of what I was leaning towards.
Or maybe he had Levi again and he was a widower, and then they did get together, and then maybe Rob, the way that he was talking about him kind of sounds like how you maybe would talk about a stepchild. You know,
it was very personal. It was very, very personal.
Personal, but not like a son.
Yes. Or someone that you hadn't seen in a while.
There was something about that, you know, again, we were kind of talking about, like, was Everett his dad? I don't think Everett is his dad. That's not the way he was talking about it. I don't know. I know that's still very much on the fence, but that didn't seem like it. But maybe that Levi and Rob Will, and then, like, maybe they were a little family for, like, a minute in time. I don't know. Or maybe the kids were left out of it entirely. Maybe they met each other because of the kids. I don't know.
The Rob Will that he knew on a personal level, and it did seem like he knew him well, was at a young age, and that he has only kept up with Rob Will facing his demons kind of remotely. Like the fact that Beulah says this is his third time in rehab. That was news to Everett. He knew that he had demons that he was battling, but didn't seem to know the specifics of it. So it seems like they were very close years ago, and now it's much more remote to where their current is, where maybe he only learns information through the grapevine or through, you know, incidental conversation and talk. And maybe it was the death of Levi. Maybe Rob Will is a murderer. Maybe Rob Will's first murder, or accidental or otherwise, was Levi.
I didn't feel enough pain from Everett to Beulah or Beulah to Everett that Rob Will had to do with his death. I really didn't. It feels like Levi had an illness, to be honest with you. His sadness was one that felt more of like a long battle and not like a tragic. It wasn't an Anna Dupree tragedy accident. That's how I'm taking it. Now, maybe I'm dead wrong, but that's how I was feeling it, like he was mourning on this level that it happened over a long period of time, like cancer or leukemia or something like that.
This feels like one of those conversations that will become important, and we'll understand it more at some point, either this season or in a future season. I think really interestingly, and this is a scene that leads up to her being drunk when she interacts with Joaquin, is that she cries, and she cries pretty earnestly after he leaves. And I believe that is the very first vulnerability we've seen from her. It is the very first sincere, non-performative emotion I think we have seen from her in this show, which just tells me that Everett, for all of her bluster and touching and young boys like being played with, you know, all of that talk, Everett is a weak spot for her emotionally. We're still learning who these characters are, but it seems like whatever their backstory is, it is very personal and very dramatic.
I agree. And I think just sets the table up for, I think, the back half of this season where, you know, now we've got these two. They're definitely on our radar screen. There's a lot more texture to Everett now. All of a sudden, this idea that he has demons, I'm like, okay. Like, and was with somebody who was with Beulah, which means that, you know, we sort of say, when we were just talking about this with Beth and Rip, like, there's like good men who do bad things, you know, that kind of stuff. Beulah, by all accounts, even to him saying like nothing good comes from you, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, but you were with her. So what were you up to? What's your tie to this story? And what are your demons? I have a lot more questions about Everett from this conversation than I do about Beulah. Okay, you guys, I hope you enjoyed another episode of Dutton Ranch. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you so much for listening to the Yellowstone Podcast at Dutton Ranch. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, please leave us a 5-star review, especially at Apple or Spotify, because if you do, it really helps a lot in promotion of the show. And if you write something nice about us, we are going to read it on the air and give you some credit. Make sure you reach out to Spotify in particular, because you can really interact with us there. We've been having great interactions with our Testaments podcast this season, and we had some great stuff with Gilded Age, so we would love to get a good conversation going with you guys on this show.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.